So yeah, it's like 5 p.m. where I am. It's 11 a.m. where you're at. You've completed day 3 with our guys, who we've been taking through their very first cold approaches with in London. So yeah, talk to us about how day 3 was.
It went fantastically well. I don't think it could have gone any better. The results that they got were just so good. As you know, like each day they'd been asking, like, have we improved? Like are we getting better and stuff? And let's just say by the end of it, I asked them that question and said, guys, do you feel like now that you've improved? And they just both instantly said yes. So I'd sent you just before the session. I'd made essentially a scorecard. So because of the two of them, I had decided that I think it was time to bring in a little bit of a friendly competition between the two of them, which had a number of exercises incorporated into it, which I don't think they probably realized was taking place, but I'll allude to it for now. But I had created a scorecard, and I essentially broke it down into 4 areas that they could earn points on. And by the end of the session, whoever was going to have the most points essentially was the winner for the day. And there were different ways in how to actually win those points. And this was a test of quality over quantity. But ultimately, whatever their strategy was to be speaking with women, it meant that they were no longer going to be thinking in their heads or having those doubts like, oh, should I talk to her? I'm not sure. It was, no, if you want to win, you're going to have to speak to women. If you want to beat your friend, then you're going to just have to like put aside all of your doubts and concerns with the approaching, and it's just like it worked like a charm between the two. Like they had out of it, what it really was phenomenal. I genuinely wish like the whole thing had been recorded, because it would have made for like such a good series. I know they wanted to be anonymous, but if it was like as an actual episode, it would have been like one of those like edge of your seats reality TV sort of things, because they were just like looking at each other going like, I'm going to get there first, you know, and running off to go and speak to the girls. So I'll break down the scorecard, because I sort of moved it off on my phone and then I put it on the computer. And what was really great with how I did this was it also meant that I can give statistics. Now, those guys love numbers. And I think with how logical a lot of guys are when they get into this, they'll see they're always curious about like, what's the ratio, like am I doing well if I'm doing like 3 out of 10 like numbers and stuff like that. So I think this will be really good. And this is as well, and I was really impressed with this, because this as well is still after 9 hours of coaching. So just breaking this down, so I broke it down into 4 areas so they could get a point for each one of these. So the first one was if they did the approach and gave an opener. So literally just trying to stop the girl. Didn't matter if she just ignored them and they walked off. Didn't matter if they just sort of stopped and said, oh, thank you, and then went away. Just the single act of going over and stopping the girl on trying to give that compliment was enough to earn them that point. So it's just the taking action side of it, at least. The next point they could have earned was if they then complimented and asked a question. So I called this just the conversation point. So just by trying to initiate, trying to have a conversation with someone, you'd get an extra point for that. Which was really, really interesting. Again, how both of them had said not yesterday, that on day 1 and 2, that they struggled with having conversations. And as soon as they thought, okay, I only need to ask a question and give a compliment, God, it was amazing how suddenly that opened up into like a minute or two's conversation. So That was really good. And then a third point they could get was if they just simply asked for a number. It didn't matter if they tried to ask for like the Instagram. It didn't matter if they even offered their number. If, let's say, the girl kind of was like, "Oh, I'm not sure," or "Oh, I'd have to think about it," whatever. But they'd get a point by simply just bringing up, asking, or swapping details. And then they also got a point if the number close actually happened, if they actually got the number itself. So it meant that any interaction they went into, they could potentially make 4 points for doing it. The approach, compliment and asking a question, asking for the number, and actually getting the number or the actual conversion itself. So I know the guys are watching, and I know they're keen to get their points and all totaled up and wondering what their stats were. So, player number one, whose name began with an S. What did we call it? We called him Stephen. Stephen, yes. He loved that, by the way. He did have a bit of a chuckle with it, so he loved that. So Stephen, or player number one, he approached 11 women in total. So he got 11 points for that. His conversations and so asking for giving a compliment and asking a question, he got 7 points for it. For asking for the number, he got 4 points. And for the number close, he got 4 points. So that meant for the 4 girls that he asked the number for, he got the number.
Dude,
So
that is 100% close rate, which is pretty much unheard of. As a complete beginner from cold approach, when he first got in contact with us, it was, dude, I can't approach. All I want to be able to do is approach. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it. So now getting 100% close rate after working with you in London for less than 10 hours. Like less than 10 hours.
For 9 hours, and that was still time shared between them. So I'd count that as, if that was individual coaching, because of the sheer number of approaches they each did. I mean, that's still in 4.5 hours. Is how I would see it.
That is insanely impressive. Like, to have a 4.5 hour time investment to be able to just get this side of life handled, like getting through the worst of it. So now he can approach, he can have conversations, and he's got a 100% close rate. Obviously, it's not always going to be the case. Like, we need to set realistic expectations for him and also for the guys who are watching. That's not to say that every approach and every number he's going to go for is going to result in like flirty fucking fireworks, happy endings. But from like a complete perspective, as a beginner, come in, no idea what he was doing, to now within, let's just say, 4.5 hours of coaching, to be able to get those results, that's insane.
Yeah, and I even sort of turned them into statistics, and I wrote down like a couple of unique facts about how good some of their stuff was today. It'd be like if you were playing like a football game and you'd see like MVP, like most valued player, or like best shot taken and things like that. So I've written a couple of other things down here as well. But I did think that, statistically, so out of all of the approaches that he did, 64% of the women that he approached, he had a conversation with. And 36% of those women, out of the 11%, he asked for the number and he got the number. So I thought, to sort of say, like, whatever the ratio is that a guy goes out, for him individually, 40% return rate on approaching is, I think, really, really good. So every 4 out of 10 women, potentially for him, if he can maintain the level that he's at. And okay, it's still a lottery when you do go out and practice, but I think that's a fantastic number. I mean, that to me is really kind of like what coaches would experience. 4 out of 10 results is brilliant, really, really good. Largest group that he approached as well was...
Sorry, just to intercept there, because I just think you made a really important point, which everybody needs to keep in mind. That level of consistency it's just a necessity. Do you know what I mean? Like, I would say what does separate, let's just say, a coach from a complete novice is the complete novice hangs up his condoms after that. He's like, all right, smashed it. Let's go play on the PlayStation. Let's forget about cold approach. I've got the skill now. It's like you want to keep striking while the iron's hot. Like this momentum, it's magnetic, and you want to just keep capitalizing on it. Otherwise, it's a little bit like learning a language. If you get lazy after a couple of weeks, you do start to feel a little bit rusty, a little bit like
and you'll lose the skill. And I think, I mean, I know we're kind of jumping the gun here, but I mean, like part of what I want to do today is to teach them how to try and maintain that on their own. So I'm going to do very similar stuff to what I did with them yesterday, but I'm going to be focusing with them more on like conversation stuff and just like extra things that they can do in the conversation, as well as just how to build sexual tension. But ultimately, I'm going to try and take the reins off a bit more, and I want them to be able to support each other and also try and make decisions on their own for girls. Because there was still a lot of me like pointing out like, there's a really cute girl over there, who's going to go for it? So I want them to try. I want to train them with just their peripheral vision and stuff today. But I mean, ultimately, I'm going to do very much the same as yesterday, but probably no like point system with that. But no, so just going back on this, because so I know otherwise my brain's going to jump backwards and forwards. So the largest group that he approached was 2 girls. So considering he had on I think the first day, he was saying to me like, how do I approach like 5 and 10 girls? And but he couldn't approach one as of yet. And then here he was, he did it a couple of times, approaching 2 girls. And his most creative approach was by Embankment Station. There was a queue going into Gordon's wine bar, and he approached a girl who was standing in the queue, who was going to be meeting her date. So, and he got the number, of course, from that. So considering like he was out on like first day, he was sort of very concerned with other people seeing him doing the approach. And also, as you pointed out, and he loved the statement as well that you said about with the ego thing protecting itself. But considering like, you know, day one, that wouldn't have been a possibility. And then there he was yesterday, literally running over to a girl in a queue, telling her that he thought she was cute and that he'd left his friends and they thought he was crazy for doing it. And they had like a very quick interaction. But not only did he get the number, he did it as because she said that she didn't know her number. He said, well, look, take mine. And as you saw in our chat, she dropped him a message. She actually had sent him a text. So, you know, he now has her number. So for guys who say like, oh, you can't give your number out, sorry, it really is just absolute bullshit. You can. It's again vibe and conviction that you have behind you, and if you do it very confidently and you're putting that trust in her to do it and she appreciates that, there's no reason why, you know, unless she changes her mind or she wasn't attracted to you, there's no reason why she won't give you the number. And I can only assume that she probably had a terrible date with the guy, which he actually did. He actually said to her as well, like I heard, just as he walked away, was, I hope you have a really bad date as well, which I love. You know, I suggested it, and I love that he used it. And I think she probably had a really bad date, and she thought, God, I really like the confidence with this guy. She was an Aussie. I think she'd only been here for 2 weeks. So, you know, she's in sort of a fantastic position to look for a guy that she wants to date. And here he was, you know, presenting himself. So in total, points-wise, so I didn't say it, he got 26 points in total. So 11 for the approaching, 7 for the conversation and compliment, 4 for asking for the number, and 4 for the actual number close itself. So bear that in mind, 26 points he got.
Okay, before you go on to player 2, I just think that's a really important point to read the guys who are like the level of attachment where you're like, hey, you're really beautiful, take my number instead. There would have been a part in my journey where I'd have been like, oh, that's just stupid. That shows a lack of confidence. But then it's all about the framing. It's like, that is really a want you, but I don't need you type of energy. In fact, it might be fun to make a video on that one time where we go out into London or Stockholm or Barcelona, just giving my number out and then like see how many actually respond. I think that is a great way of just revolutionizing this whole thing. Just be like, hey, like, here's my number. If you want to meet up, just drop me a message. If not, then this has been really cool. I think that one piece of thing right there, that's game changing for guys. Because it's like, I do think you should still be able to go for the number. Like, I think guys shouldn't use that as like a coping mechanism. Like, I think you should be able to pull the trigger and go for the number. But then once you've actually developed proficiency with this, yeah, that's an amazing way to really convey that I want you, but I don't need you type of energy. Like, that is intent mixed with freedom from outcome. That's like high level shit right there. So yeah, fair play, Stephen.
Yeah. And even on top of that, imagine then how little pressure is on you to think like, oh, what am I going to text her? Like, is she invested? But when you've got a girl that you've met and you've handed your number over to them, and I 100% agree, it needs to be you to try and take the number, but certainly in some circumstances, the other way around is absolutely fine too. And yes, I think it'd be a great experiment to do if you did give your number out to people. And what kind of ratio would you get if you did do a mass number of women? So I don't think like 10 would be enough to justify it, but maybe like our other video that we did where you spoke to like, was it like 30 women?
33. Yeah. I think I'd do 50. I think I'd do 50. Just like, right, lads, we went out, we approached 50 women. I gave all of them my phone number. This is how many actually respond. Like, I would probably, if my approaches were as good as I know they can be, I would expect at least half to respond, if I'm being completely honest. Like, the way that I go into those approaches, full conviction, blowing her off her feet, the person that I've developed myself into becoming, I'd be disappointed if I didn't get like a 50% return rate. And then the only problem I'll be faced with is, which one am I going to take out? Do you know what I mean? So I think that is a high quality problem.
Every single one of those women would want to go on a date with you because they've invested just that moment in making that first message sent. But it was honestly, it was fantastic to see the change work. That player number one certainly did with that. Considering again, first day he just was really hesitant to actually do any of the approaching, and was like going into give a compliment and then kept saying that's it. Like that was literally as soon as he hit the wall within like seconds, he'd just say that's it, and then he walked back. So here he was having proper conversation. So honestly, it was really, really great to see.
I guarantee that's what he says after he's ejaculated.
Well, you can talk to him about that. You can say like when after you've he words it like when he's smashed. So you can say, yeah, when you smash a girl, do you say that's it afterwards?
And he just walks off trying to preserve his ego.
Yeah, I'll leave that conversation between you and him. He'll ask me today, like, what are you talking about me after I probably slept with a girl and smashed her. But there you go. Right. Anyway, player two. Now this was absolutely fascinating. So I'm going to say now, player two hit his personal best, and not only did he hit his personal best, he doubled it. So player two, he did 30 approaches in 3 hours. And most of them, he was just like ricocheting off of girls as well. So as soon as he'd approached one group, he'd gone to another, and then he did another and another. So he did very well. So I mean, both of them, their personal bests were 15 on average each day. But yes, with player number two, so he got 30 points for just doing 30 approaches, at least. So you've already got the idea that he's won this already, points on. So there's no escaping the obviousness here. As for giving a compliment and asking a question, he got 16 points. So essentially, just over 50%, so 53% of his approaches, he then actually had a conversation with the women. He then, of asking for the number, he got 5 points. So 17% out of those 30 women, he actually then asked for the number. And then as for the number close, he got 1 point, which was a 3%. Now, total points wise, he got 55 points. So of course he absolutely obliterated his friend with this. So we'll kind of discuss the differences though, which was really, really good to identify between the two of them in their behaviors and just how they looked at approaching individually. And this is why it's so important for guys to find their own rhythm when they're approaching and understand what works for them and how every guy is different. And that's what I wanted them to see with this as well. But yes, he got 55 points. His largest group, do you want to take a guess what his largest group was that he approached?
6.
Not quite, but it was 4. His largest group that he approached was a group of 4. And it was funny because as the day went on, it first of all went to approaching 2 girls, then it went to approaching 3 girls, and then it went to approaching 4. And his most creative approach was in Covent Garden, where the group of 4, which was the largest, they were having dinner in the centre part of Covent Garden. And he walked over and he was just like, "Look, ladies, I got to say, like you are all absolutely stunning. Are you the mum?" And she was like, "Yes." And he said, you've got great genetics." And they loved it.
There.
Yeah, and they loved it. And even when after they walked away, because he said he was, I've got to go back to my friends, but I honestly, I had to say that you all look great. And they were all giggling. I could hear from the distance that they would loved it. But when he came back to us, he turned around and he waved at them, and they all waved back. So there was like a sea of women like all waving at him. So it was phenomenal. So he got 55 points in total, and between the two of them, total approaches in 3 hours was 41. So it was really, really good. I think for me, the idea with the exercise as well was that I was hoping that they were going to ricochet a bit more off of the women. Like, I think in my mind, I was hoping they were probably going to go for maybe like a total of 60 approaches in that time. But what I wanted them to also inherently understand was quality over quantity. That sometimes just because you're approaching a sheer amount of women doesn't mean you're going to be getting great results with it. So, like, look at what person number 1 did. He only did 11 approaches. Ideally, I'd like him to have hit 15, but he was also looking for his type of girl, which is great. Because if that's what he's after, that's great. But there was also certainly moments where I did remind him that, for those girls that you really, really like, you do need to be ready for them. It's good and all to say, like, I only want to talk to the hottest women when I'm out and about, but they're not all walking around. Unless you're going to some city that is just filled with supermodels and like high-end attractive women, you're not going to see that kind of ratio. And so you have to kind of expect that when you're out, just talking to people is good social flow. It's good momentum for you. And it also preps you for when you do see that amazing woman. So rather than, by walking around for 2 hours, you're not in the mood to talk to people, you've lost that social momentum, and then that amazing girl comes along, and then you're like, I can't quite do it. I don't know what I'm going to say. And you've lost that opportunity because you didn't take those stepping stones to be ready to speak to her. Whereas just by giving compliments to people, asking questions, curiosity of like, oh, where you're from, I love how you look, or I heard the accent, that sounds amazing. Like whereabouts are you from exactly? Whatever it is that you're talking about, just at least gives you that social momentum. So, I encourage them to most certainly talk to, really cute girls, and I think even as well the ones that I probably have gone for personally. But it was great. You need to have some momentum there. So at least then, when you do come across the girls, and absolutely, I think the ones that player 1 got the 4 out of 4 conversions on, or he's 100% conversions on, they were girls that actually he was attracted to. So even though he didn't do as many approaches as player number 2, he did better results because he had still got some momentum in place. And when those certain girls came along that I pointed out to him, and he went for it, and actually he was like, oh, you know what, actually she is quite cute, yeah, I'm gonna definitely like put some effort into it. And lo and behold, he did it. And for him to then have conversations is what I was really proud of. That was the other thing as well, that by just encouraging them just to think about, right, well, what compliment can I give, and what question can I ask, just focusing on the present, it actually had a psychology effect and opened it up into an actual conversation. So like he spoke to a couple of girls in comment, and he said like, oh, you're the mum, and she was like, nope, start say that again, and she took her glasses off and was like, okay, right, let's start afresh. Are you the sister? You know, and then suddenly they got really playful, or he got really playful in his interaction. So, you know, talk about like a 180 of like, oh, I can't, I just say that's it, you know, after I start and give the compliment, and then there he was now opening up, talking about himself, asking fun um, they had that again. I love each other anyway. I mean, it really was such a laugh, and you know, and I think they thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm sure they'll tell you anyway in the group, but you know, it just showed how even in such a small amount of time, how far you can come if you know things are done correctly, and definitely even like having just a coach say, right, here's the right way to do it, here's the wrong way to do it, you know, or just someone nudging you constantly on track, and you know, and they got their results, and I'm really pleased, like even for player number one, that the girl did actually text him. I mean, what a great well, I mean, it again breaks what can and might happen in the industry if you actually put the most certain the results that you're getting, like that ambition and confidence behind you. That was the same game, and they used it, and see them just really come out of their comfort zone and make decisions on their own, and yeah, and get the results they did was great. And I think as well, even just as like one last thing that I'm thinking about, just feedback wise, even for player two, the only reason he got a low number of number closes, because he only got the one, was simply because he just didn't ask for it. So I think a famous quote is, you know, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I'm sure that's Wayne Gretzky. That was literally it. So for player two, if you're watching this, if you'd have literally have probably asked for the number, I think you would have found that your statistics for asking for the number and the number closes would be drastically higher. And that's something else just for even any guy to consider. In abbreviation, you always want to do the ABC, always be closing. If you can at least just practice that, I know even for beginners, you might definitely get a no if you've not really established any conversation or connection between you and the girl. But by at least just practicing that, as time goes on, you'll get more conviction and be more comfortable asking for the number. So like on day number two, player two was like, oh, you know, I think my vocal tonality is a bit weak with asking for the number. And I'd said to him, because I gave him like an 8-minute voice note when he'd asked for feedback in our chat, and I'd sent it to him personally. And I just said, like, literally, it's just through literally getting the reps in, and look at how well you did yesterday. But definitely, as the feedback, it's just asking for it more, just being more brave with doing it, and you'll find you will just naturally get more comfortable with it. And they also thought less about their linguistics. They thought less about their body language. Things just naturally fell into place, and that's something else as well. That when you do this, all of these worries and concerns that you've got, guys, will fall into place. Everything will just correct itself naturally as you do it. You don't need to be thinking necessarily about where do your hands need to be? What angle do I need to stand at? Where do I need to be looking? You'll just naturally do it properly, the more comfortable you get with it. And of course, having like someone like me or Kristian just to sort of say, look, keep that eye contact there, or like, okay, let's just watch these mannerisms and stuff. They're easy fixes. Easy fixes. But I was very, very happy with their results yesterday. I think definitely this will be a competition thing that whenever I have like two guys again going forwards, I'm 100% going to use this thing again. It worked like a charm so well, and I'm really, really pleased with everything with that. I mean, even like today when I coached them this afternoon, you know, I there's not really going to be many things like new I'm going to need to teach them, but I am going to show them some like new conversation techniques, which might just help them play with their conversations a little bit more. And what I'd love for them to also experience is just how to again bring in that sexual tension into a conversation, which is obviously just going to give them even more points or more brownie points, at least with the girls, if they're trying to meet up with them and that they want something in particular to happen with them on the dates. So it's really just more about just setting that frame. So I'm going to go over things like that with them today, like we're just slowing down speed of speech and pausing and holding eye contact a bit more, and even just being maybe a bit more playful, using just certain conversation techniques. So yeah, that was literally the afternoon yesterday, and golden hour between 5 and 8, guys. If you ever really want to practice cold approaching, going out on a Saturday between 5 and 8 is a perfect time. Everyone is in such a good mood, and of course, if everyone's about to go to like the pubs, bars, excuse me, restaurants, out for dinner, see shows and stuff, great time to go and talk to people. And I think even then 3 hours was enough. Everyone was tired. I know when I sat on the train afterwards, I was absolutely exhausted from, I think, the mental exhaustion of it all. And I know the guys were as well. So no, props to them for doing a fantastically good session.
Yeah, and I think they've just played it perfectly. You know, they went out, they tried it once, they realized it was going to take them a shitload of time. They got in contact with me, and then 9 hours later, they've done in 9 hours what would take the majority guys 9 months to do. And even then, those guys who didn't actually get coached, they still wouldn't be anywhere near these guys, because what guys get when they come and work with us is like essentially over 2 decades of social experience, probably like 3 decades. So it's like it just makes sense. I'm going to be learning Muay Thai here in Thailand. It's like I ain't going to learn that by watching a fucking YouTube video and try to practice on my own. That's like,
and you're not going to get good literally in a single day either. Like you're going to have to like properly, you know, like a few days a week, few hours a day, whatever. Because I know a few people who've done Muay Thai, and it's not, it's certainly not an easy thing to just learn overnight.
Yeah, and it's literally the same with cold approach as well. Like you don't know what you don't know. You find people who are better than you, and you pay your money to teach you. Yeah, it's like you pay with money or you pay with time. You pay with whichever one you value the least. So I value my time more than I value money. So I find people who've got the skill, I pay them, and I get there faster. It's really fucking simple. So yeah, if you want a similar experience, lads, there's a link below. You can apply to work with us. Myself and Daniel, we know what we're doing. We ain't charlatans. We ain't some fucking fraudsters or scammers or what's the thing, like snake oil salesmen or whatever the fuck people brandish people in this industry as. Like, we know what we're doing. We know how to get results. So if you want results, work with us. If you don't want results, don't work with us. So what? Just so I'm curious, because I'm just trying to like break it down in my mind. The gamification element seems to be an absolute game changer. That healthy male competition.
I love gamifying stuff. There's something about the learning curve that I've seen, not just in this industry, but even in like other industries that I've worked in self-improvement as well. When you gamify something, I think the learning experience just becomes more absorbing. Like you want to do it because it's fun. And you know, the guys had like jokingly said yesterday about, you know, they felt that like serotonin drop, you know, and they were comparing it to like a particular drug as well, which I won't say on YouTube, but they, you know, they loved it. And they constantly said how this felt like a superpower to them and whatnot. And yeah, but there's something there's something I've always really enjoyed with just gamification. And if it can be brought into a system, I do believe that you can 100% improve a guy's results so much more. I mean, you think about like how people do like their driving theory test, you know, you're watching videos and stuff. And I know some people kind of find it a bit weird, but in a way, it's also kind of a fun experience when you're having a look for something to play out in a video. Like, oh, where's the errors? Where's the things? That's how you learn. And then when you're actually in the situation when you're driving and you suddenly see something very similar play out, it kicks in that thought of like, oh, well, I remember when I was playing that video game, that certain thing happened. Oh, I need to behave like this to react. And it was the same thing, absolutely, with this. And in fact, by getting them to play off of each other just meant that they wanted to succeed. There wasn't this like, oh, I'm scared to talk to a girl. It was like, I want to get that point. I don't want my friend winning. I want to get that point before he does, you know. And I think it really did just turn around. So yeah, and that's something that I just like incorporated into stuff anyway, me personally. And it just so happened with these guys, because it was two of them, because it was two best friends. Yeah, it absolutely worked like a charm. And I think actually as well, what I might try and do today, which would be really fantastic if it did happen, and I'm not gonna sort of like put my eggs in one basket and say like it's definitely gonna happen, but it'd be wonderful if it did. I'm gonna try and encourage them to see if I can get them on an instant date today as well. That would be, I think that would be a really big eye opener for them if they can do that, because there were certain things that they certainly said in their conversations about like, oh, I've got to go back to my friends. You know, they think I'm strange for coming over to say or whatever. But try things that they say, I think, in the interactions and make it like that they're out on their own and that they've got free time. And even then asking the girls like, look, if you got like a free 20 minutes now to go grab a coffee, I'm gonna see. I mean, it'd be a big step, but if they could do that, that would also be like a huge step for them to experience going on an instant date with this as well. So yeah, I might push it. I might sort of like throw the idea into the ring and sort of pray to the day game gods that something does materialize with that.
Well, it's very similar to what we did in London, though. It's like we go out with the intention of approaching 33 girls to try and get a date, and I think that I'm always trying to find ways to make this fun. Like the more fun that we have, she feels what you feel, the girls you mirror. So the more fun that we're having, the easier it is to get results. I think like going out with the intention, like seeing who can be the first one to get an instant date, then it's gamified. So now it's fun. But like that, because like if player two has, let's call it closed anxiety, where he's struggling to actually go for the number simply because he's not practiced enough yet, he has to understand that all that this comes down to is open and close. So you make your open strong and make your close strong. So they can literally go in today, like find women, be like, hey, you're beautiful. Listen, I'll be completely honest. I've got a spare 20 minutes. I was about to go and grab a coffee. You should come along with me. So I think if they leave it purely with the intention of like forgetting about conversation skills entirely, prioritizing what's important, strong open, and then strong close, inviting that girl into something they're already doing so the date is not dependent on her inclusion, I think that would help to skyrocket everything. Like going out with the intention, let's see who can be the first one to get an instant date. I think that would be quality.
Yeah, and then what a great way to like end like the final day as well, if they can have the instant date experience and just know what that's like. So yeah, I think I will. I'm gonna sort of throw that idea into the ring. I think the actual term is throw the hat in the ring. So I do confuse my analogies sometimes or my metaphors, but I'm gonna definitely try that, and also, like I say, just bringing more sexual tension into the conversations and just getting them to experience like other ways to be playful. So it just gives them a bit more flexibility and more things that they can, I suppose just giving them more of a tool set or toolkit for their conversations. And I think one other thing is just to get them just to get more in the habit of like, right, if it was just them on their own, how are they going to manage doing this on their own? Because I won't necessarily be there forever. And also, I think at some point, I think they did say they're moving abroad. So, you know, they're not going to necessarily always be in London. So, yeah, it's going to be then a great opportunity just for them to take those stabilizer wheels off of the bike and get them just to practice talking to women without me pointing out stuff. So I'll work on their peripheral vision as well, just making sure that they're not going to do the thing that player number one was doing. They're like, Was there a hot girl over there? What? I missed that. I missed that. Oh, you want me to go and talk to? Okay, all right, fine. I'll go do it. You know. So I'm gonna. So I want to definitely, I think, train them with that. So there'll be a number of things to work on today, but I think those will probably just be the main things. There's nothing really that I need them to tweak. Everything fell into place so well yesterday. And they overcame so many limiting beliefs that maybe they've realized, maybe they haven't. But the way in how they perceive or think about themselves certainly really went out the window. They just had fun, and they did a great job with that, and the results that they got just kind of showed. So yeah, number of things there that I'll do with them today. It'd be amazing if we get instant dates. Not the end of the world if not. I've got all these other things at least to work on, but for them to say that they, even one of them, if they got an instant date, I think it's just then a huge just testimonial to the time that they invested in not just a short window of time, but even that time being split between another person as well. So yeah, I think that's probably what we'll be doing today.
Yeah, no, that's quality. I think definitely whilst they're still in the UK, if they can get more filming sessions scheduled with you, I think that would be insane. I think that if they're able to see the progress of themselves, I think that will help solidify the belief within them. Because the only session I filmed was their very first session. I think if they're able to get more points of reference whilst they're in the UK, I think the payoff
I would love that. If they
immense.
were to book another session or another filming session, and then they can actually see where they've come and compare it to that first session that they've had, I think they will be truly impressed with the difference. And to then have that on record as well, you can't then argue it when you've got like, hang on a minute, I couldn't talk to anyone, to now I've got a video of me chatting to like 3 women at once. Is just phenomenal for like their own record, and even to see their body language, their linguistics, the kind of conversations that they're having as well. Yeah, I mean, it'd be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, because I know I remember when I first came to London, and when I filmed with you, we had like 3 back-to-back filming sessions, and like even just the contrast from the first day to the second day of filming, like because I was just like an absolute nerd about it, I was just like watching myself back for like 5 hours, being like, this is shit, this is shit, this is shit. So it's like, yeah, change happens fast, but you don't know what you don't know. Like it does hold a mirror up to you when you can actually see yourself back on the big screen. So yeah, that'll be quality. Even when they come back into the city as well, like if they want to link up with you and just do some like add-ons or whatever, like yeah, they've certainly got the skill now. It's just about maintaining the momentum and making sure that there's a difference between acquisition and retention. You know what I mean? So it's like going out there, doing your approaches, getting good results. That's quality. But we want people to be successful for the long term, and not for it to just be like this like big roller coaster, massive high, and then nothing changes after that. So it's important to just have that sustained support over a prolonged period.
And I don't want them to lose the skill that I've given them over like the last 3 days. So that's why today really is going to be, I think, majority. It's mostly going to be focused just around, again, getting them to take those stabilizers off, and how can they manage their own expectations with going out and approaching. And in fact, a lot of that has been over the 3 days already. Just where, because they've spoken a lot about like how they felt this high and then they felt really low and then really tired and stuff. There's this constant fluctuation that you'll constantly have this roller coaster of like feelings and emotions going on, which I think maybe guys don't really consider because they haven't experienced it until they've actually done it. But you have to manage your energy levels when you are out approaching, and you will have people that you'll speak to who will lift your mood, and then you'll have others that will completely knock you down, and you have to learn to be able to manage that, whatever that looks like per person. But you have to kind of understand that you're going to have good days, bad days, or you'll have a good moment and a bad moment, but that can literally turn around like within the click of a finger. So I want them to be able to, even after the session today, I want to make sure that they are able to do it on their own. It doesn't matter if they're scared. It doesn't matter if the anxiety is there because they don't have that support system in place. But or at least from me not being there in person. But I do want them to get to a point where they can, if they just see someone, they go for it. they don't need me there, and maybe they don't need each other there as well, but they just need to be at that place where if they can see someone, they go for it, and they walk away managing those energy levels and managing the expectation. You know, some guys, if they get a really good result, maybe it is best to just leave it there. End the day, just be like, you know what? I got a number from a really attractive girl. I really don't want to lose this feeling that I've got right now. I'm in such a good mood. I'm not going to chance it. Some guys work a lifetime to get that euphoric experience and break through so many social boundaries and feel so liberated for doing something that scared them their entire lives, that sometimes why risk it? Why gamble that experience that you've got? Whereas others, you know what, they need to do it to break them out of a slump, and then they do feel good, and then they could probably go for hours because maybe they had like a really bad day at work, and suddenly now they feel amazing, and now they want to share that with people, and they want to just be as altruistic as possible. So, you know, again, it's an each to their own, but I do it. Today is about just making sure that those guys learn how to manage their energy levels, their expectations, and be able to do things on their own.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I've always likened cold approach to emotional blackjack, and it's knowing when to leave the mental casino. I think like being able to leave on a high, I think that's important because it keeps you excited for the next time. But I think the point
Yeah.
that you made about understanding cold approach is not linear. Like even the best Premier League footballers have bad matches or even bad seasons. It doesn't mean they're bad players. Like they just had a bad game or they had a bad season. And like I can always tell somebody who's really experienced with cold approach and a guy who's just starting, because the guy who's experienced with it, he doesn't get carried away in either emotion. So it's like when things are going really well, he knows, oh, it's going to go shit soon. And when things are going shit, it's like, it'll go good soon. So like maintaining that level of homeostasis, maintaining that level of mental equilibrium, that's what separates the guys who really crush it with this, the guys who are just part-timers. It's just understanding it's not linear. You are going to have your highs and lows. You're going to have days where you absolutely hate cold approach. You're going to have days where you absolutely love cold approach. But just being able to manage your emotions and being able to go from one undesirable outcome to another without losing any enthusiasm, and just recognizing you are only ever one great approach away from everything changing. You only ever need one. You only need one. That mindset, it'll stop you from slumping in scarcity, because it's like, oh, I only need one. Even if you go out today, you get blown out 20 times in a row. You know, you're only ever one great approach and everything change. I think that one mindset will help a lot of guys on this quest.
Yeah, and in fact, even just thinking about it now, like this certainly came into play when we were walking through some areas that did go a little bit quiet on the street. You know, when you suddenly start losing just that momentum and motivation because, you know, it's quiet. So like when we when we were walking around, part of with the competition was that I'd said to them, like, guys, it's also your decision today where you want to walk to, because it's good practice. You know, I don't want to just be necessarily saying like, oh, let's go here, let's go there and stuff. I want them to also inherently understand and take responsibility of like, okay, if we were going out together, where would we want to go? Where's our type of women that we want to be approaching? So it was great just to let them, you know, take the reins and decide, right, let's go Covent Garden, let's go Leicester Square, let's go to the Strand, let's go South Bank. And they found that when we were crossing the bridge, going there and coming back to South Bank and to Embankment, you know, it was quiet. There really wasn't anything to see. And they even sort of pointed out a little bit like, oh, I'm feeling my energy going down. And I think also when they were having coffees, that also seemed to make a bit of a difference. So I'm going to probably suggest to them today, just have the one coffee and just leave it at that. It does seem like every time they've had a coffee, it's made them feel a bit tired. So I think it's an overstimulation. It's kind of like you have to find that sweet spot with your energy level. But I think if you overdo it, it kind of pops and then that energy just sort of drops back down very quickly. So I'm going to probably say to them, yeah, don't have so many coffees today. But yeah, it's just something to be aware of, that when you're out and about, you will have quiet moments and you have to kind of work out, how do I handle that? Do we just walk in silence? Do we talk to each other? Do we, you know, admire the scenery? Do we just still try and find someone to approach, even if we're not really attracted to them, just to keep that momentum there? Or do we just accept and embrace that we have hit a quiet lull with approaching, and we just use this as relaxation time before we get back straight into it again? So it's like just taking a pit stop and just going back out there. So, there's not really a right or wrong with it. I mean, again, every guy's going to be different. Every guy's going to have different energy levels. Introverted guys are probably going to find those quiet moments are either going to be a dream for them, or it could be like the worst thing in the world. And that maybe they do need to then keep on approaching just for the sake of it, just to hold on to that new extroverted energy that they've just earned. So, yeah, it's again, I think, something else that I want them to be able to manage. But yeah, there'll just be times where you'll be out, and it might almost feel demoralizing because there's just a quiet moment, but that's okay. But if they're on their own, maybe then that's the time to call it a day. I mean, we've had it where like we've walked around for like 20-30 minutes from filming when it's been like near at the end of the session, and then you've said, you know what, Dan, I think let's call it here. I'm just sort of burning out, and there's I'm not really seeing anything that's worthwhile. So yeah, you have to just sort of call it when you feel like it's that time, and there is no right or wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with if it's after an hour, but if you've done a good hour of approaching, then great.
Yeah, I think I think people underestimate the importance of momentum when it comes to cold approach. I do think like something that we get the guys to do in the Entourage is whenever they are feeling like they're getting stuck in the head, recognizing that they're part of this WhatsApp group, so they can send voice messages, they can record themselves in public. That's a killer exercise, because like as soon as I get stuck in my head, if I just pull out my phone and just start recording myself and then using the topic of the fact that it's quiet as the topic of the video, like, hey lads, I'm in London right now, fuck me, it's like graveyard vibes around here. I thought I'd just like do this video just to get. Once you actually get comfortable recording yourself in public, it feels as though you've already done 10 cold approaches. And I guarantee, whilst you're recording yourself, usually what happens is you see a girl who you could talk to, or like other people will see you recording yourself, and it invites the social spotlight onto you. So I think, yeah, there's a lot of different ways to play it. I think if you are notoriously known to get stuck in your own head, just start recording yourself in public. Maybe call like one of your wings just to get the vocal cords firing again. Send voice messages to guys if you're in a network, if you're in a group, then send voice messages. Anything to just get you out of your head. But I think acceptance can be key as well. Just recognizing it might just be a quiet 20 minutes. It is what it is. Like, you're not always going to get the bustling traffic. And I do think that is its own exercise in state management. Because I think the best guys in this game, they can just sit in that tension and they can just marinate in the moment. It's like you go from a shotgun to a sniper. That might mean that you do less approaches, but the ones that you do approach, they are quality. Like you were saying before, quality over quantity. So yeah, there are going to be quiet periods, but what matters most is how you actually deal with it.
Yeah, and then you have to make sure that you go for it. Like if beggars can't be choosers. If you then are walking around for a long period of time, which I'll even say, like, even if you go out for an hour, find absolutely no one to speak to, but at least you've taken that action. I mean, you should, for guys who are at the beginning of their journey, you should still be very proud of yourself for at least just getting out the house and giving it a go. That is still just a stepping stone in itself. And okay, it would be better if you can at least just speak to one person in that hour. But if you can just, being out the house, be proud of yourself. But don't also make the silly mistake of trying to then spend another hour out and another hour. And then you've lost an entire day just walking around doing absolutely nothing. There's nothing, I would say, high value about that. Even those confident guys who are wealthy, who have like this great attractive lifestyle, they're not going to be just walking around on the street aimlessly. They're going to be investing their time more appropriately. So what I would say is like, cap it. If after a certain point you've hit a wall or you've just found that there's absolutely nothing, just be like, you know what? I've given this my all, but it's time to get on with the day and go back to normal life and do whatever. Go and do hobbies and things. And then what will happen? You'll probably then be on your way to the gym or coming back from the gym or going shopping, and suddenly there will be a girl and you'll be like, you know what? I did walk around for an hour earlier today and I didn't see anything. And now I've actually got my golden opportunity to do it. Go for it. That then you should be even more proud of yourself that you've then done like 2 stepping stones there of trying to go out for an hour. Yes, you didn't find anything, but you did it. You put yourself out of the house. You did something that other guys would have been absolutely scared to have done. You tried your hardest to actually look for someone to speak to. Yes, you didn't do it, but you still did something that no other guy is going to be brave enough to go and do, to actually try and look to have a conversation with a stranger. And then you've accepted the situation, you've got on with your day, and now you've actually got the opportunity that you were looking for, that you weren't able to take earlier, and now you've got it. 100%, you have to go for it. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't go well. It doesn't matter if you just give the compliment. That is still a stepping stone. In fact, with the guys, when going back, even just talking about energy levels, when they did feel their energy dip, I said to them, right, we just take it a step back. All you do is give a compliment, or if you're feeling the anxiety again, we just want to break the anxiety bubble just to get that momentum going again. So sometimes you have to take 2 steps. You have to take a step back to go 2 steps forwards. It's absolutely okay. It really isn't a straight line. You go back and forth a lot to manage your energy levels and expectations when you're out approaching. And again, you just have to be very aware of like where your goals or expectations are with approaching. And if you don't see anything when you're out and about, be like, okay, right, you know what? I've still done the hour. I've ticked the box. I gave it a go. And if you see someone later, do it. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's quality. I think, yeah, we've dropped a shitload of value in this one. Like, real, like, game-changing, life-changing, transformative shit. Yeah, just big shout-outs to the 2 guys, because I know how difficult it is when you first get started. Like, you've got a lot of doubts. You've got a lot of stories as to why you shouldn't do it. I have the same thing, like, going into doing this, like, Muay Thai training. I've got all the reasons in the world not to do it, but just this obsession with progression. I think the thing that I like the most is, like, when I first spoke to these 2 guys, they said to me the reason why they want to do cold approach is they identify their weaknesses and they aim to get excellent at them. And I really love that. So it's like they identified that their day game wasn't as good as their night game. They identified that daytime cold approach was a weak spot and they want to become the full package. They want to become the complete men. So it's like just having that level of self-awareness where they're willing to invest into their weaknesses. Most guys just shy away from the weaknesses. Most guys are like, oh, I'm not naturally charismatic, or I've always been shit with women, or cold approach won't work for me because X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. These 2 guys have identified they are shit at cold approach. They've got all the reasons in the world not to do it, but they decided to put the money where the mouth was. They were like, we want to get really great at this skill set. And in 9 hours, they've already got better than 99% of guys who even tried this. So, boys, it's really simple. If you want to undergo a similar transformation, there's a link below. You can apply to work with us. And just following the footsteps of these 2 action takers. I think that's the most important thing in this space is like these live streams. It's just wanking in the wind if you don't do anything with them. Like we can talk till the cows come home. Like, oh, our guys are getting amazing results. Like we get insane client transformation, but it's like it doesn't really hit until it's you who's going through the transformation. So yeah, transmute information into implementation and understand belief does follow action. The more action you take, the more belief that you get. And then the more belief that you get, the more you're able to experience success in advance when it comes to approaches. So yeah, anything else that you wanted to say before you embark on your final day of coaching with these 2 fine gentlemen?
Yeah, I think in fact, just adding on to what you said there, like for guys who are going out and practicing and hitting a wall, you get the guys who then they just see that as the validation that, oh, this doesn't work. Oh, you know, the day game or approaching doesn't work. You know, it only doesn't work because you're doing it wrong. And that you do genuinely need feedback if you want to get good results. You know, these guys that I'm working with, they were awful, bless them, you know, on that first day. I mean, the first exercise I gave them was that they had to do their first 2 or 3 approaches each on their own, no feedback from me, just so I could see where they're at. And they really, really struggled. Now, if they were then out on their own and they were like, oh, this doesn't work, then they wouldn't have gotten the results that they've got after then 3 days. You know, they've done only 9 hours, and they are literally ricocheting off of women, getting phone numbers, talking to girls in queues in shops, at dinner tables, having dinner and stuff, and they are getting really, really good results. They are smashing all of their limiting beliefs. I like that I've said the word smashing after he smashes girls. So it's funny when you hear people from different areas of London, and then like they're different ways in how they talk about having sex with people. Yeah, it always makes me laugh, just like the variations of stuff. But you know, these guys, they are gonna succeed. They're gonna get results. Like I would love. I mean, I really hope, like, even as like the weeks, months, and year go on, I really genuinely hope, and I hope they're watching this as well. Like, I genuinely hope that they keep at this, because I would be so fascinated to hear where both of them are at, you know, in a few weeks' time, in a couple of months' time. You know, I genuinely believe that every guy tends to hit that amazingly top plateau in this after about 6 months if they've been really consistent. And like by that, I mean like they are just comfortable doing like literally everything. Like they're, you know, they'll still maybe have a bit of anxiety. I think that's absolutely normal. I think even you could probably honestly say, like, even when we've gone out filming, like the first couple of approaches, you get the anxiety. Everyone does. It's normal to when you're getting that momentum. But I think it would be so fascinating to hear where they're both at, and just how the confidence they've developed has rippled into every other area of their life. Because even doing this doesn't mean you're going to just be good with talking to women and having a great date in life and having relationships and sorts as well. You're going to be so confident at work. You're going to be really confident with your friends and your family. You know, people are going to see you in this hugely different light. So I'm so curious to see where they'll be if they keep at this. And I do generally hope that they stay in contact. They've been really, really good, down to earth guys as well. I've been really fortunate to work with them. So definitely thank you very much for that. And yeah, but if they keep at it, they're going to have amazing results. And they did that because they took action, and they put their pride and ego aside. They accepted that they were really shit at approaching, and they did something about it. So, you know, if other guys watching this, you know, if you are struggling, get some help. You know, I can assure you, you know, your mannerisms and bad habits can be tweaked, and you can go from looking really shy and anxious to really confident. You know, your fashion and fitness and nutrition can be changed instantaneously as well. And then, especially with fashion, I mean, you could go out for a day and you could look like the wealthiest man in the world, you know, and do that by literally shopping in Primark with the right kind of, you know, budget and decisions with things. And with fitness and nutrition, if you're going to the gym and you're working on yourself, that will also give you the confidence. That will also manage how your body reacts to anxiety and when you're speaking to people. Everything can change if you put the effort into it, and not accepting that if you are doing this on your own, that, oh, it doesn't work, because everything does work. It's just, unfortunately, you're doing it wrong, and you have to admit that you need some support with it. You know, whether that be with me, Kristian, somewhere else, wherever you are in the world. But you have to embrace the idea that if you are stuck, there is nothing wrong with getting support. No one's going to say, oh, well, you're a terrible person, or you're a failure, or this and that. Like, no, you know, I genuinely want the best in every single person that I work with, even just talk to. I mean, even, you know, I mean, even like, I hope like even Kristian can kind of vouch for it. Like, I'm very happy to just give people advice just to point them on like the right direction. But if you want to have a good date in life and you want to get good results, and if you're struggling on your own, I mean, reach out to Kristian. At the end of the day, reach out to him, even just having a consultation and having him give you that moral support to tell you what you need to do going forward might even be the very thing that you need to suddenly go track or this line or path of things are never going to change for you to literally everything can change for you for the better. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, there's a link below if people are serious about actually taking action in this side of their life. And if you're adamant that you can't change, then not much I can do for you, mate. Like, if you're adamant that you can't change, it's like, oh, it's over for me, then fine. It is over for you. Like, what is it? It's like, if you really want to do something, you'll find a way. If not, you'll find an excuse. And there's just far too many crybabies, action avoiders, and excuse makers in this industry. I was a complete loser 4 years ago. I took it upon myself to change. And change can happen fast when you're actually following the right structure, you've got the feedback, and also you've got the accountability as well. So yeah, link below if you want to undergo a similar transformation. If not, then best of luck with everything that you decide to do in this life. Maybe you can become a painter. But no, listen, I appreciate your time. I hope you have a fantastic day, final day with the guys today. And then yeah, we'll do a wrap up live stream in terms of how they got on the final official day of their coaching experience. So yeah, let me know how it goes. Drop some messages into the chat. And I'll speak with you when you finish with them. All right.
Sounds good. Laters.